Budget 2025 session was presented by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on Saturday with an emphasis on accelerating economic progress, enhancing private sector investments and boosting middle-class spending power. The budget outlines a path for achieving Viksit Bharat. Here are the major highlights from the speech.
The focus on agriculture has been one of the central pillars of the budget. Sitharaman announced the launch of the PM Dhan Dhanya Yojana aimed at addressing the needs of farmers in 100 districts with low agricultural productivity. The initiative seeks to enhance crop diversification, augment cold storage facilities and improve both short-term and long-term lending to farmers. Notably, 17 million farmers will benefit from this scheme. Additionally, the budget outlines a mission for cotton productivity with enhanced credit facilities for farmers. The limit was raised for 77 million farmers from 3 lakh to 5 lakh rupees. A special focus was also placed on MSMEs with increased credit coverage to drive growth and employment generation. India is poised to be a global leader in the emerging industries of artificial intelligence and digital technology. Sitharaman unveiled plans for a Centre for Excellence in Artificial Intelligence. The government also announced a skill development program focusing on providing opportunities to students and gig workers alike. Sitharaman emphasized the growing dynamism brought by gig workers in India's economy, with special support earmarked for 10 million gig workers. She also outlined plans for global capability centers in the Tier 2 cities, driving the growth of the domestic electronic equipment industry. Urban reforms took center stage with a fund dedicated to the redevelopment of cities alongside a nuclear energy mission as part of the Viksit Bharat initiative. Additionally, Sitharaman outlined plans for the development of 20 new domestic airports over the next decade, fostering regional connectivity through the UDAN scheme. A major commitment was made to the maritime sector with the 25,000 crore rupee Maritime Development Fund, designed to enhance India's position as a global shipping hub. The budget also signals India's intention to capitalize on its potential as a leading destination for medical tourism, with 20,000 crore rupees allocated for this sector. To further strengthen India's global economic standing, the Export Promotion Mission was introduced, along with the Bharat Trade Net for unified trade documentation. Sitharaman highlighted the government's focus on making India a more investment-friendly economy through various regulatory reforms. Notably, a new income tax bill will be tabled next week, aiming to simplify tax processes. The direct tax proposals were also significant, with the new tax regime ensuring tax relief for middle-class citizens, particularly those earning up to 12 lakh rupees. On the indirect tax front, custom tariffs were rationalized, with several tariff rates removed and a social welfare surcharge eliminated. Additionally, critical minerals and electric vehicle manufacturing will benefit from tax exemptions to drive industry growth. The measures taken to empower farmers, entrepreneurs and women are crucial steps towards creating a self-sustaining economy. Business Bureau, WION World is One.
Well, let's now take a look at how common people are reacting to the Union Budget 2025.
Allocation going to AI for special areas like agriculture and stuff like that. And since we've been on an AI hype in the last year or two, so hopefully that will produce some real good productivity gains that way.
Recently I saw the tax bracket this morning only, and I feel that it's a good move, but also it's a very strategic move given the elections are just right around the corner. And of course for young people it means that they'll be able to save more, but I feel it's a very, very strategic and shrewd move on part of the government to do that. Yeah, that was my first observation from the budget.
कस्टम ड्यूटी माफ़ करने का भी बहुत अच्छा फैसला है। इससे आम लोगों को बहुत हेल्प मिलेगी, दवाइयाँ सस्ती होंगी, बहुत हेल्प मिलेगी।
And now, on that note, let's also take a look at how the experts are reacting to the union budget.
The argument has been, should it be a revenue neutral reform or should there also be a tax reduction? Clearly, the second path has been taken, and I think the argument for that was that inflation has increased the nominal income of people, of the middle class particularly, and even though the real income has not increased that much, the tax has increased, the tax revenue collected from them. So that's a good economic argument. I think it's important to understand the background. The background is that we know from the survey which came out last year that poverty has been virtually eliminated. So you could say that of course there are pockets all over the country, but those cannot be addressed by general policy. You actually have to go to those pockets, see what the problem is, and address it pocket by pocket, where the role of states is much, much more important than the center. The center, the union government tries to do whatever it can. There is one additional thing people are asking, why not any further stimulus in capital goods? And the reason is that because of various things which happened in the first 2 quarters of the year which we are in right now actually, the expenditure outlays had slowed down. So those will naturally recover now, both at the union level and the state level. So even though the numbers may not change, the amount which is translated into actual expenditure is going to change. So you will get both those things helping to get growth back on the track. But there is FDI reform. There is a promise to look at how the BIT is working and change them, because as the finance minister said, only 2 have been signed so far. So perhaps there is need to relook at the way we think of the bilateral investment treaties and reform them so that we can move forward. The high level review committee on regulations is very critical. The promise to, the effort is already going on to reform the Atomic Energy Act, the Nuclear Liability Act, the Urban Reform Challenge, etc. There is a whole bunch of reforms mentioned in the budget which will help sustain India at a fast growth rate.
And that was Arvind Virmani, a member of Niti Aayog, who highlighted how over time inflation increased the nominal income of people. Well, let's also take a look at some other reactions from the experts and how they have viewed the Union Budget 2025.
I think the reduction in income tax will help the consumption. From moving from 5 lakhs to 12 lakhs gives a lot of cash in hand for the salaried class. So they have excess money in hand which they can use for spending either on tourism or on buying products or on movies, entertainment and things like this. This will drive the economy of the country now, and also it will help in the manufacturing sector too. When people buy FMCG products or maybe automotive or some other product, it will help the industries also grow. In other words, there is excess money available in hand for the individual salaried class to be spent.
There is an effective reduction on the tax liability. Let me just, and there are many features in it, let me just give you a couple of examples of it. As of today, you get to a maximum marginal rate of 30% when you have income above 15 lakhs. Now you get into the maximum marginal rate of 30% if you have income of 24 lakhs. Second, there is a new rate introduced in place of 5, 10, 15, 20, and 30. There is a 25% rate of tax for income between 20 and 24 lakhs. And then when you go upwards, there is a reduction in the slabs at all levels. So virtually everyone, whose income is above 15 lakhs will benefit from the slab rate changes.
Tax revenue was 1.5% of GDP. Today, it's north of 3%. So I think we've realized that, there is money going into building infrastructure, but probably the wage hikes, right, have not been as high as we wanted in the last few years. So now the situation is different. So we need to continue to build infrastructure. We, in fact, need to invest more in digital infrastructure. The FM spoke for about 3 minutes on central KYC and how they're going to revamp the whole system. They're going to make sure that the data is better, the data is more updated, KYC costs go down. But I think there is also a need to drive consumption in the middle class, and putting back 9,500 rupees per month in someone's pocket who makes 25 lakhs a year, 2 lakhs a month, right? That's giving them a 5% increment, which I think is very good.
I think entrepreneurial landscape, has been there seem to be adequate measures for MSME loan limit has been increased. The credit guarantee scheme has been rationalized. For startups, the loan provisions have been jacked up from 10 crore to 20 crore. I think, and more importantly, the national manufacturing mission, which has been set up, which will cut across small, micro, MSMEs, large industries. I think that's very welcome, because a lot of policy initiatives, which get lost in multiple ministries in Government of India. I think now there'll be a focus on the kind of policy initiative for the industry, as well as on governance matters, on monitoring, on providing support to the industry. I think that it depends how it takes shape, but conceptually, I find that as welcome, not only for MSMEs and startups, but for large industries also.
And those were the opinions of how the experts view the union budget. Now, the union budget 2025 was hailed as that of a pro-middle class budget. On that note, let's also take a note at how common people have reacted and how they have perceived the union budget 2025.
The idea of middle class tax slab, this is a conversation which should be having later. It's a hoax. What we should be talking about is indirect taxes. The working masses of this country, they bear the brunt of the indirect taxes. Everything they consume, they eat, whatever they do, a huge chunk of the portion of that goes to the government, and they obviously which increases the cost of living for them. And at the same time, why is the finance minister silent on corporate taxes? These corporates, they get billions and billions dollars of subsidies.
Lesser taxes to pay, or at least some sort of tax exemption. I think middle class would have some money to pay for their own things, rather than continuously thinking that all their money is gone to the government in paying the taxes.
Every time we see the budget, we often observe that the middle class are the ones who are always suffering. So this will actually help the middle class people to just get what they deserve. So the tax slab being increased from 7 to 12 lakhs, I think so is a good move. But I'm still skeptical regarding the past taxes, which has been like a meme on popcorns also, which our finance minister has to take back. So I think so if it is presented in good spirit, but it has to be availed in a good spirit as well.
12 लाख तक के टैक्स को जो रियायत दी गई है वो तो जरूर स्वागतार्ह है, क्योंकि जीने का जो जीवन मान का जो वैल्यू है वो आजकल बढ़ गया है. कोई भी आदमी अगर थोड़ा भी अच्छे इसमें मिडिल क्लास में जो रहता है, उसका हर मंथ का जो एक्सपेंसेस है इट इज़ मोर देन 70,000. तो 70,000 तो एक्सपेंसेस में निकल जाएंगे, बचेंगे 30,000 रुपये. वो तो अपने फ्यूचर के लिए प्लान करेगा. तो दिस इज एक्सेप्टेबल है, बहुत अच्छा है. लेकिन वो जो टैक्स पेयर का जो पैसा इधर उधर डाल रहे हैं वो थोड़ा बचाना चाहिए. मतलब मुफ्त की रेवड़ी बंद कर देना चाहिए.
है कि किसी ने अगर रिटर्न भरने के बाद उनको अगर कुछ होता है, एक्सीडेंट या कोई फेटल, तो उसका बैंक या इसमें अकाउंट होता है, उसको लाभ होता है कुछ तो भी 10 लाख.
India's fiscal deficit for 2025 is expected to stand at 4.8% of GDP, slightly below the initial budgeted estimate of 4.9%. The reduction is mainly driven by lower than expected expenditure, particularly on capital investments. and higher than anticipated dividends from the Reserve Bank of India. The government has revised its total receipts for 2025 to 31.47 trillion rupees with net tax receipts of 25.57 trillion rupees. The revised expenditure estimate has also increased with capital expenditure pegged at 10.18 trillion rupees. These adjustments reflect the government's ongoing efforts to maintain fiscal discipline. To finance this fiscal deficit of 16.13 trillion rupees, the government is relying on net market borrowings, with the remaining balance to be covered by small savings and other sources. The government aims to reduce central government debt as a percentage of GDP in line with the fiscal consolidation roadmap announced in 2022. Despite a slowdown in government final consumption expenditure and weaker private consumption, GST collections and direct tax revenues have remained robust. Corporate tax revenues did see a modest dip, but overall tax collections continue to provide support for fiscal management. India's GDP growth slowed to a 5.4% in the September quarter, marking its weakest expansion in nearly 2 years. This was mainly due to weaker private consumption and government spending. Despite this, the government has successfully reduced its fiscal deficit from 9.1% in 2021 to 4.8% in 2025. This marks a major improvement over the past few years. Additionally, the RBI's dividend payout has provided a much-needed boost to the government's finances. This dividend is a 141% increase compared to the previous year, helping offset some of the fiscal pressures and contributing to the fiscal consolidation efforts. However, global uncertainties and supply chain shocks continue to dictate government spending. The budget announcement brings the focus on the full tax exemption to those earning up to 12 lakh rupees per annum. But there's widespread confusion because of the tax slabs. The explanation is simple. The tax slabs come into play only if your income is more than 12 lakh rupees and not below. Let's take an example. If your salary is 15 lakh rupees, you will be taxable. So how will the tax be calculated in this case? We have to break down the income into the tax slabs as mentioned in the budget. From that 15 lakh rupees, the standard deduction of 75,000 rupees needs to be deducted. So the income for a tax calculation will be 14.25 lakh rupees. The first 4 lakhs of the 14.25 lakhs. There is no tax on the remaining balance of 10.25 lakh rupees, which is the next 4 lakhs. You pay 5%. Similarly, for the next 4 lakhs of the remaining 6.25 lakh rupees, you pay 10%. For the balance 2.25 lakh rupees, you pay 15%. So for income of 15 lakh rupees, the total tax burden will be 93,750 rupees. Now listen in to what our expert Mukesh Bhutani, Managing Partner, BMR Legal, has to say on this.
There is an effective reduction on the tax liability. Let me just, and there are many features in it. Let me just give you a couple of examples of it. As of today, you get to a maximum marginal rate of 30% when you have income above 15 lakhs. Now you get into the maximum marginal rate of 30% if you have income of 24 lakhs. Second, there is a new rate introduced in place of 5, 10, 15, 20, and 30. There is a 25% rate of tax for income between 20 and 24 lakhs. And then when you go upwards, there is a reduction in the slabs at all levels. So virtually everyone, whose income is above 15 lakhs will benefit from the slab rate changes.
In our previous discussions, we highlighted the commendable aspects of the Union Budget 2025. However, it's imperative to address the areas where the budget falls short, and that's concerning the middle class. Challenges with inflation, unemployment, and housing affordability. Despite the government's efforts to stimulate consumption through tax cuts, inflation remains a pressing concern. High food prices have majorly impacted lower and middle income households, eroding their purchasing power. The budget does not provide substantial measures to curb rising living costs, leaving many families struggling to manage daily expenses. The budget introduces initiatives aimed at strengthening sectors like agriculture and manufacturing. However, it lacks a comprehensive strategy to tackle the issue of unemployment, especially among the youth. The absence of targeted programs to create jobs and enhance skill development leaves a major gap in addressing the employment crisis. While the budget emphasizes infrastructure development, it falls short in making housing more affordable for the middle class. Real estate stakeholders had hoped for increased budgetary allocations to infra development, including metro rail networks and multimodal corridors, which would catalyze commercial real estate growth in urban and peripheral areas. Meanwhile, experts had hoped for a reduction in GST or raw materials like cement and steel, which would rather further lower the construction cost and make it feasible for developers to complete projects at competitive prices. This could benefit end users by potentially lowering home prices. Moreover, lowering GST on under construction properties would make homes more affordable and also boost sales. While the Union Budget 2025 cuts taxes, it misses the mark in addressing critical issues affecting the middle class. A more balanced approach focusing on controlling inflation, creating employment opportunities and making housing affordable is essential to inclusive and substantial development. Well, that's all that we have on the show today. Thanks very much for staying with us. You are watching Beyond the World. This one, do stay tuned.